The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation as Elon Musk entered the federal courthouse in San Francisco. Wearing a dark tailored suit and an unusually calm expression, he stepped confidently past the photographers and into Judge Edward Chen's courtroom, where reporters had already filled the back rows. Musk was there over a high-profile regulatory lawsuit, a case that questioned not only his financial disclosures but also the very structure of his leadership. Tesla's board stood by him. Wall Street held its breath. And the tech world watched like hawks. Judge Chen, known for his stern demeanor and sharp tongue, took his seat and eyed Musk as if he were already guilty. "Mr. Musk," Chen said with a smirk, "do you intend to charm the court with tweets and rocket metaphors today, or will we hear something substantive?" Laughter trickled through the courtroom. Musk raised one brow, but didn't respond. He simply turned to his lead attorney, whispered something brief, and then looked back at the judge, still silent, still composed. Judge Chen leaned forward. "You're not in one of your SpaceX boardrooms. This is a courtroom. And in this room, reality matters." It was clear Chen was setting the tone. But what came next would flip the entire courtroom upside down, and no one, not even Musk's closest aides, saw it coming. As murmurs settled and cameras clicked in silent bursts, Elon Musk calmly reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick, sealed manila envelope. He handed it wordlessly to his attorney, who stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor," the attorney began, voice cool and deliberate, "we would like to submit new evidence into the record. This was only finalized late last night. It's directly relevant to the SEC's accusations." Judge Chen narrowed his eyes. "What is it?" Musk leaned forward and finally spoke, his voice measured but resonant. "It's a confidential agreement, signed by 2 senior government officials and a former SEC advisor, all of whom knew about the financial adjustments we made in advance. Including the exact wording they now claim was misleading." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Judge Chen blinked twice. The judge adjusted his glasses and signaled for the court clerk to retrieve the document. As the contents were handed to him and he flipped through the first few pages, his smirk faded. "What exactly am I looking at here?" he asked slowly, suspicion in his tone now mixed with caution. Musk folded his hands on the table. "Proof, Your Honor. That this entire lawsuit was greenlit under political pressure, despite internal acknowledgement that no rules were broken. This wasn't about protecting investors. It was about silencing a voice they couldn't control." A stunned silence filled the room. For the first time in the trial, Judge Edward Chen didn't respond immediately. His eyes scanned the pages again, this time with more urgency. And then, something unprecedented happened. He looked up, and asked a question he hadn't asked any witness that entire week. "Do you have more of this?" Musk nodded once, then reached into his briefcase again. This time, he retrieved a small silver external hard drive and held it up for all to see. His attorney spoke, "Yes, Your Honor. This drive contains encrypted communications between federal regulators and private political donors. Emails, call logs, even meeting transcripts. We verified them with digital forensics specialists. They show that this case wasn't born from financial misconduct, it was manufactured." A gasp shot through the courtroom. A few reporters hurriedly tapped on their phones, no doubt live posting every second. One legal analyst mouthed, "Oh my God," to the person next to her. Judge Chen took a breath. Then another. "Hand it over to the clerk." "I want this sealed and reviewed immediately," he said, voice suddenly clipped and serious. As the drive changed hands and the clerk marked it for evidence, Musk leaned back in his chair. His expression hadn't changed, calm, unshaken. Almost as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. But it wasn't over yet. Chen tried to regain control. "Mr. Musk, if this material is authentic, you're implicating several government agencies. Are you prepared to deal with the consequences of releasing classified communications?" Musk didn't flinch. "I'm not here to play games, Your Honor," he replied. If the system's been rigged, the public deserves to know. And if I'm guilty of anything, it's believing that truth doesn't require permission. Silence again. Judge Chen slowly leaned back in his seat, staring at Musk as though seeing him for the first time, not as a tech billionaire, but as a calculated, strategic force. He didn't smile this time. "I see," the judge said simply. The courtroom braced for what was next, because now, even the judge looked unsure of how to proceed. The courtroom's atmosphere had changed. What began as a hearing with a scoffing judge and a seemingly cornered billionaire had turned into a live-wire moment in legal history. Judge Chen stared at the evidence on his bench, then back at Musk, and for the first time that day, he didn't interrupt or mock. "I will adjourn the court temporarily to review this material in chambers," he said, tone clipped, almost cautious. "Mr. Musk, you are not to leave the building." Before the gavel fell, Musk leaned forward again, calm, but now more pointed. "With respect, Your Honor," he said, "you might want to read page 36 of that transcript before stepping out. It references a conversation that took place in your chambers, 6 months ago." Chen froze mid-motion. Whispers spread like wildfire. One of the reporters dropped her pen. "His chambers." Judge Chen opened the transcript and flipped quickly. His eyes scanned the lines, then stopped, and his face lost its color. He said nothing. Musk's attorney stood again. "We're not making threats, Your Honor. But if the integrity of this court is in question, we owe it to the country to follow through." The judge swallowed hard. Then, with a tight voice, he said, "Court is in recess." He stood and walked out through the side door, leaving the courtroom buzzing with confusion, shock, and a rising sense of chaos just beneath the surface. The doors hadn't even closed behind him when a reporter stood and shouted, "Mr. Musk, are you saying the judge himself is implicated?" Musk glanced back over his shoulder. "I'm saying," he replied, "some people forgot I build rockets, satellites, and AI for a living. Reading their email isn't the hardest thing I've done." Click. Flash. Stunned silence. Outside the courthouse, word was already spreading. Inside, no one knew what would happen when Judge Chen returned, or if he even would. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Then 45. The judge had still not returned. Attorneys whispered. Reporters paced the aisles. Even the federal prosecutors at the front table had gone quiet, flipping through papers as if trying to guess what Musk had just detonated. Then finally, the side door creaked open. But it wasn't Judge Chen who walked back in. It was a federal marshal. The room stiffened. The man approached the bench, whispered something to the court clerk, then stepped to the center of the courtroom and addressed everyone in a steady, official tone. "Due to an urgent matter concerning potential conflicts of interest, Judge Edward Chen will not resume the hearing at this time. A substitute federal judge has been requested." Gasps. Audible shock. Musk remained still, his hands folded in front of him, eyes fixed on the marshal. His attorney leaned over and whispered, "You just shook the system." But it wasn't over yet. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor," he paused, correcting himself, "Marshal, the government would like to know who has jurisdiction over the submitted evidence now." The marshal replied firmly, effective immediately, "All materials, including the transcript and digital files, have been placed under the custody of the Department of Justice's Internal Review Board. Per emergency protocol." Musk turned slightly, catching the cameras in the back. "I'm glad someone finally realized this wasn't a circus," he said. "It's a cleanup." One of the prosecutors narrowed his eyes. "You just brought the DOJ into a federal courtroom dispute, Mr. Musk. What are you hoping to gain?" Musk stood for the first time all morning. Calm, unhurried. "I'm not trying to win," he said. "I'm trying to reveal what's been hidden in plain sight. And if a few careers end because of it, that's not my problem. It's theirs." He sat back down. No one spoke for nearly 10 seconds. And then the courtroom doors opened again, and a new face walked in. A substitute judge. One known for her zero-tolerance attitude toward political interference. The temperature in the room dropped. This wasn't just about Musk anymore. Now, it was about everyone who thought he'd never push back this hard. The woman who entered was U.S. District Judge Valerie Sloan, a former military prosecutor turned federal judge with a reputation for cutting through theatrics like a scalpel. Even the prosecutors looked uneasy as she took the bench. She glanced at the files on the clerk's desk, then scanned the room. "I've been briefed on the basics," she said briskly. "Mr. Musk, I understand you've submitted evidence suggesting judicial misconduct, political interference, and regulatory manipulation. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Musk replied, standing with quiet resolve. "And I stand by every word." Judge Sloan tapped the folder in front of her. "This transcript, it references a private meeting involving Judge Chen and an SEC official?" "It does," Musk answered. "The meeting was off the record, and it proves they discussed a premeditated strategy to pressure me into a public settlement, with full knowledge that no law had been broken." The judge turned to the DOJ observer now seated in the front row. "Has this evidence been authenticated?" The DOJ official rose. "Preliminary analysis suggests the materials are authentic. We're conducting a full forensic validation." Judge Sloan gave a single nod. Then she looked up and delivered a line that made every head in the room snap to attention. "Then this court is no longer just deciding whether Mr. Musk violated federal regulations. It may now be determining whether federal officials, including a sitting judge, conspired to suppress a private citizen." Gasps erupted again. Sloan held up a hand. "Order." She turned back to Musk. "If what you've submitted is true," she said, voice level but heavy with meaning, "you haven't just exposed corruption. You've triggered a constitutional crisis." Musk met her gaze. "I'm aware, Your Honor. That's why I didn't tweet it." The judge gave the faintest smirk, not of approval, but acknowledgement. Then she flipped through the evidence, her tone shifting. "I'll be convening an emergency review panel in the next 48 hours. Until then, this hearing is suspended. All parties are to remain available for questioning. And Mr. Musk," she paused, "you just changed the trajectory of this entire case." With a bang of the gavel, the court adjourned. As Musk walked out, surrounded by security and cameras, one reporter whispered what everyone was thinking: this just became the trial of the decade. By the time Elon Musk exited the courthouse, news vans had tripled. Helicopters circled above. Live streams were counting millions of viewers across YouTube, X, and even LinkedIn. Every major network had broken into programming with the same headline: Judge Edward Chen recuses himself after Elon Musk submits explosive evidence of government collusion. Musk's legal team declined interviews. His only statement, given to a cluster of microphones outside the courthouse, was short and deliberate: "This was never about me. This is about what happens when public servants stop serving the public." Meanwhile, inside the Department of Justice, chaos had ignited. An internal review task force had been activated. Agents were already en route to seize digital records from both the SEC and Chen's court staff, including archived communications and private calendars. Back inside the courthouse, Judge Valerie Sloan met behind closed doors with DOJ investigators, combing through the transcript Musk had submitted. Page 36, now infamous, allegedly quoted Chen stating, "We can't let Musk walk away clean. It'll embolden every billionaire with a keyboard." The implications were staggering: not just bias, but coordination. That night, mainstream media erupted. Some anchors defended the regulatory system, while others called for an emergency judiciary inquiry. A few commentators even admitted, reluctantly, that Musk may have pulled off something unprecedented. But the most unexpected reaction came from someone who hadn't spoken publicly in years, a retired federal judge, speaking anonymously on NPR. "If the transcript is real, and if the emails hold up in court, this doesn't just stain Judge Chen. It calls into question dozens of cases handled in his courtroom. Musk might have just cracked something much bigger than his own trial. And in Palo Alto, in a secure room guarded by private security, Elon Musk sat alone, staring at a monitor as legal teams scrolled through more files from the encrypted drive. He wasn't smiling. He was calculating. Because tomorrow, he planned to drop the second wave. The next morning, as the nation tried to process what had already unfolded, Elon Musk posted a single message on X, Part 2. 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let transparency speak for itself. At exactly 11 o'clock, Musk's legal team held a streamed press conference. They didn't take questions. They didn't allow interruptions. Instead, they displayed a curated collection of redacted emails, metadata records, and transcribed phone logs, all pointing to a coordinated effort between certain SEC officials, 2 congressional staffers, and a private law firm known for lobbying work against Tesla's autonomous vehicle expansion. One document drew particular attention, a February memo labeled Strategic Containment, EM. The memo detailed talking points for public officials to subtly discredit Musk's statements on AI, cryptocurrency, and government oversight, framing him as unpredictable, legally slippery, and potentially volatile. But the final line hit the hardest. Public loss of trust in his judgment is more valuable than a legal conviction. The press conference ended with one last surprise, a brief video clip, authenticated by digital forensics, capturing a recorded Zoom call where a senior regulatory advisor laughed and said, "Musk won't fight back. He thinks too long-term. He'll play it safe." The clip ended with silence. Then the screen went black. That was all it took. By afternoon, 4 sitting members of regulatory boards had issued public statements distancing themselves from the memo. 2 congressional offices quietly shut down their phones. The law firm mentioned, once boasting connections from D.C. to Brussels, deleted its entire government strategy section from its website. Judge Sloan, now overseeing the case directly, issued a statement through the court, "This evidence will be examined thoroughly. If corroborated, the implications extend beyond this courtroom." Meanwhile, social media exploded with hashtags like #MemoGate and #LetMuskSpeak. News commentators began calling for Senate hearings. Protesters gathered outside the SEC headquarters. And in a dim-lit war room at SpaceX, Elon Musk looked across his team and asked only one question: "Are we ready for Phase 3? Because this wasn't about vindication anymore. It was about resetting the rules. Day 3 arrived like a storm. Cable news anchors had all but dropped their regular coverage. Commentators now referred to the unfolding events as the Musk Files. Some said it was a legal drama. Others called it a civil awakening. But Musk didn't care for labels, he cared for leverage. At 9 a.m. sharp, Judge Valerie Sloan summoned all legal parties to a closed-door emergency session. Federal agents, tech experts, and DOJ officials were in attendance. Only one voice rang out over the others. Musk's. He didn't bring more accusations. He brought a live audit. On screen, a digital forensic expert walked the court through a real-time reconstruction of metadata from the email submitted earlier. Embedded timestamps, routing origins, and server logs confirmed not only that the messages were real, but also that they had been altered after submission in official SEC records. Judge Sloan slammed her gavel. "You're telling this court that federal evidence logs were doctored after being filed?" "Yes, Your Honor," the expert confirmed. "And the modification protocol matches the fingerprint of a user account last traced to Judge Chen's personal clerk." A stunned hush fell over the courtroom. Judge Sloan issued an emergency preservation order on all SEC communications for the last 12 months. Outside, the dominoes had already begun to fall. The law firm from the leaked memo announced it was temporarily ceasing operations. A tech watchdog nonprofit announced it would file a civil lawsuit against several regulatory officials. And one member of the Senate Judiciary Committee called for a televised investigation into the case, live. Meanwhile, Musk did what no one expected. He walked into the courthouse alone. No entourage. No security. Just him, carrying a thin black folder. When reporters shouted questions, he offered only a cryptic phrase, "Today's not about what I know. It's about what I'm willing to risk." Inside the folder, a signed affidavit. Musk had sworn, under penalty of perjury, that he would testify in open court, naming names, dates, and sources. It was bold. It was reckless. And it would change everything. The courtroom was packed. Every seat, every inch of wall space. Journalists stood shoulder to shoulder. DOJ officials flanked the gallery. A camera crew, permitted under emergency transparency orders, quietly recorded from the rear corner. Elon Musk took the witness stand. No lawyers spoke for him. He had chosen to testify on his own. Judge Sloan, composed and fierce, gave a final warning. "You understand that false testimony under oath is punishable by law, Mr. Musk?" "I do," he replied calmly. Then he began. For nearly 2 hours, Musk spoke clearly, without notes. He detailed the pressure campaigns. The veiled threats from lobbyists. The midnight calls from friendly advisors asking him to dial down the innovation. He described meetings where regulators had floated unofficial limits on Tesla's AI, citing national harmony, not law. But it was the second hour that made history. That's when Musk named names. He identified a senior SEC director who allegedly coordinated edits to public filings. He cited meetings with White House advisors who encouraged him to take a plea for the good of market stability. He read aloud internal memos never meant for public eyes, showing officials colluding to weaken investor confidence in his companies. Then he paused. And delivered the line that would lead every headline the next day: "They didn't just want to find me. They wanted to redefine who's allowed to build the future." A quiet gasp. The court clerk, stunned, looked to Judge Sloan. She took a breath. Then turned to the DOJ liaison and said, "On the basis of this sworn testimony and submitted materials, this court recommends immediate investigation into all named individuals and agencies. I will also be forwarding this to the House Judiciary Committee within the hour." The gavel came down, not with drama, but finality. Court adjourned. Outside, the world exploded. Cable networks launched wall-to-wall coverage. Lawmakers issued panicked statements. Whistleblowers began stepping forward, inspired by the scale of the exposure. Even critics of Musk, hardened, skeptical, admitted something enormous had just cracked. In one tweet, viewed over 80 million times, Musk wrote, "Innovation should never be subject to quiet sabotage. It's not just a win for me, it's a warning to everyone who thought no one was watching." And in the following months, subpoenas flew, resignations came, and public trust in regulatory systems was put under a microscope. New ethics laws were drafted. Judicial protocols were overhauled. But Musk? He went back to work. Rockets to launch. Code to write. Silence to maintain. Because for him, the courtroom wasn't the battlefield. It was just the warm-up.